All right.
So it's kind of a specific question. But if you could say something, little thing about one book Srila Gurudev printed named Paramartha Dharma Nirnaya from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Anything you could speak, because we don't have much references, much explanations. I don't have.
Yeah, well, I like that question. For those of you who don't know, this is a short Bengali book that our Gurudev published, Paramartha Dharma Nirnaya, which translates along the lines of like establishing the supreme goal of life, something like that. And so this book, it's actually an excerpt. Most of it is an excerpt from a book by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, another Acharya teacher in our line. And it's I'm happy you brought this up, because it's a really interesting text which discusses different levels of consciousness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and welcome to Tungarasa, and Charu Damodar just joined us. And we have Dandavat, and Narayani is also tuning in, getting her audio connected. Just waiting. Okay, I won't wait. Yeah, so it's a really interesting. What happened is, this is when our Gurudev, he joined the mission quite young. He was only 17, and this was like one chapter. Welcome, Narayani. Happy to have you with us.
Dandavat pranams.
Dandavat.
Yay.
So this is actually one chapter. I think it might be chapter 8 in a book. What's the name of the Chaitanya Shikshamrita? Means the Nectarian Instructions of Lord Chaitanya. This is a text by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and this is one chapter in that book. And in that chapter, Bhaktivinoda is discussing the gradation of consciousness, and under 5 different categories. I can't remember all of the specific terms, but he discusses this idea, that, we know from the Vedas that consciousness is pervading everything, that spirit, that Atma is everywhere. And welcome to Bhagavan, Dandavat Bhagavan Prabhu. Atma, spirit, is everywhere, right? Jai Bhagavan Prabhu. But Atma is everywhere. Spirit is everywhere. But it's just a question of how much that consciousness is expressing itself, right? Consciousness is a component of Atma, is an element of the Atma, we are told, is composed of Sat, Chit, and Ananda, eternity, consciousness, and bliss. So I'm just reminded this one time when I was in Nepal, and I was staying at someone's house, and we visited someone for some lunch or something, and they had this really funny poster on the wall. It was a poster of it was like a beautiful image of some fruits, but it was like an example of someone kind of like sneakily including their own philosophy there. And they had this quote on the poster saying, "Fruits are the prettiest little things that God ever made and forgot to put a soul in." Which, like, to me, it just shows like how undeveloped all other philosophies are. It's only in the Vedic presentation that we find, such clear, systematic, and detailed knowledge of the nature of reality. So the Vedas tell us clearly there is Atma everywhere. And so then Bhaktivinoda, our teacher in our line, he discusses this idea that it's just a question of how much the consciousness is able to manifest, able to reveal itself. And then he discusses this under 5 different categories. expressing the evolution of consciousness. And so the lowest is like, rocks, mountains, trees, there's consciousness there, but it's very suppressed. Actually trees are in a different category, because one interesting thing about trees, it's discussed in, there's one text called the Manu Samhita, which some of you will have heard of. It's fairly well known in the Vedic culture, the Manu Samhita. And there's a place in the Manu Samhita where Manu, the sage, he's discussing all the different elements of the creation, different creatures of the creation. And then in our Guru, I haven't read that, but we heard from our Gurudev, that then there's a place where when Manu, the sage, he comes to discuss trees, our Gurudev said he's in a crying mood. Because he said the situation of trees is so sad, because he says that trees have a consciousness that is very close to humans, right? Humans are considered to have the most developed consciousness, and therefore we feel the most. However, they are stuck. So trees, they have consciousness like humans, feelings like human, emotion like human, sensitivity like humans, but they're stuck in this like immobile position as trees, where they're not able to express their desire. So it's considered, it's a sad, and for some trees, they'll exist for hundreds of years, right? So it's that's why our gurus, we saw with our Gurudev, he was very sensitive about trees. He would never cut a tree. He was always very sympathetic to trees, and he would treat them in a very careful way. They're highly conscious beings. So anyhow, so Bhakti, discusses these different levels of consciousness, like rocks. There's consciousness within rocks. There's Atma there, but it's very suppressed. It's very, very low level consciousness. Then you have plant life, you have animal life, and our Gurudev also made a point how consciousness, that one symptom of consciousness is movement. So perhaps the trees are like an exception, but generally, the more consciousness is present, the more there will be movement, freedom of movement, freedom of full expression. So then animals, there's more consciousness, and that's demonstrated in their movements. And then another related point here is that this is one reason why the vegetarian diet is recommended, because because the sin of killing another being is calculated according to how much pain is inflicted on that being. So if you're killing an animal has much more consciousness than a plant. So you're inflicting more pain. The animal's experiencing more pain than is experienced by plants. Plants also, there are even studies that have shown how plants, they experience some apprehension, some type of pain when they're coming to be harmed in some way, but it's on a lower level. So therefore, if in the spirit of trying to minimize exploitation, it's recommended, the vegetarian diet. Of course, that's not the final solution. The final solution is bhakti. The final solution is devotion, offering. That's the only thing that can neutralize, all sin. So anyway, going back to the main discussion, then we come to human life. Human life is exhibiting higher degree of consciousness, and the human birth, but then within the human species, there's also gradation. And humans who are devoid of faith, are humans who live a very kind of hedonistic life centered around selfishness, selfish enjoyment. That's considered to be, that's a lower consciousness. That's a lower. So there's actually two different categories, as I recall, for different level, or maybe there's even three. I think there's three, I think, human life. And so like one is the more, you know, it's almost animalistic, right? We all know human life can be practically animalistic. And I'm sure we've all seen that or experienced that, right? How humans can be not very different from animals. You know, it is mentioned in the scriptures, you know, hara, nidra, baya, maitunam cha, right? That these are the four basic activities of every living being: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. You know, so animals live like this, and you know, very lower level humans, they also just live like that. They just live on the basis of their basic instincts, and there's nothing more than that. You know? And then as I recall, next level, so then coming up to the fourth level in these 5 stages is human life, which is directed towards, you know, something higher, something spiritual. And there's also a spectrum there. There's also a discussion by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, our grandfather guru, and there's a book we have, Divine Aspiration, where you may want to read that book. That maybe you've already read it, but you may want to reread that. Srila Sridhar Maharaj discusses this extensively, and he describes in this 4th stage, he describes a whole spectrum. So like, for example, the lower end of the spectrum, he talks about, you know, some philosophers, they've discussed this idea of imaginary theism, like promoting theism because it helps regulate society. You know, this is an idea that, you know, some philosophers have discussed, you know, like Freud, right? Religion is the opium of the people. You know, like religion can, there was another French philosopher who Srila Sridhar Maharaj quoted, like, oh yeah, you know, God doesn't really exist, but we can use God, you know, as a means to try to create order in society. You know, it's a helpful tool. You know, religion is a helpful tool. So this is, you know, one level. And then there's also persons who follow religion, but in a very formalistic, ritualistic way, you know, without really going into, you know, the real consciousness, mood, and entering into the real spirit of relationship with God, with the divine. And then of course, higher end of the spectrum is those who are, you know, actually, you know, diving into this, you know, diving into spiritual culture. And then the 5th one, it was Purna Vikashita Chetan. Purna means like full, complete. So fully, like Vikashita means something like blossomed or bloomed, Chetan, consciousness. Then that is someone who's living in you know, living a personal loving relationship, you know, with God, with the divinity. That is the full expression of consciousness. You know, that is where the consciousness will go naturally when it is fully expressed, you know, when it is fully manifested. So it's a very interesting, you know, very scientific explanation of the gradation of consciousness. I'm just giving a very, you know, simple overview. But our Gurudev, he read that like as a, you know, I think he was like in his late teens when he read that, and he was really inspired by it. And he mentioned how, like, I read that as a newcomer and it made so much sense to me. And he thought it will help others also, you know, and so then that inspired him to publish it himself. So then he extracted just that chapter, and he published it again as a book in its own right, which he called Paramartha Dharma Nirnoy, the supreme goal of life. And he also wrote his own introduction to that book. And it's one of those things on our list, but our Bengali Sanskrit scholars kind of dropped the ball. But yeah, it's one of those things on the to-do list, outstanding items to translate into English.
Oh, yeah. So it's in Bengali. The book
It's in Bengali, yeah, it's in Bengali. Yeah, but we do have like, there's a place in the book I mentioned, Divine Aspiration, where Srila Sridhar Maharaj, there's a whole chapter, I think, where he's discussing this subject, and also in Revealed Truth by our Gurudev, there's a place where he's discussing also.
And those terms, this gradation of the consciousness.
I'm trying to remember. I can look it up right now. I remember that Purna Vikashita.
Mukulita, Sankuchita. I have some, yeah.
You wait, so can you say what those 5 are?
Mukulita, it's the budding consciousness, the human. And
what was the first one, the most?
The previous ones. Let me see the previous one. Before Mukulita, right?
Here it is, I found it. So it's Achadita Chetan is means covered consciousness. So like thoughts. Covered consciousness. Then Sankuchita Chetan means suppressed consciousness. And then the third is Mukulita, as you said, Chetan, budding consciousness. Vikashita Chetan, blooming consciousness. And then Purna Vikashita Chetan, fully blossomed consciousness. Yeah, interesting.
These terms they are Vedic or Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he classified them.
I'm not sure what the origin is. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he's referencing Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I mean, many of these things, they may not be presented exactly like that in the Vedas, but the ideas are there, right?
Okay.
All of you'll probably find these phrases there, but maybe they weren't presented in this particular framework, which is very helpful. And
I see.
And our Gurudev, while we're on the topic, our Gurudev, he also mentioned how one time when he was buying some building materials for one of building that he was having constructed, a new guest house and museum in our temple in India, he was purchasing materials, and then he was going to buy some stone for the construction, and that the men who were these workers, these quarrymen, they had 2 types of stone for sale, and they said that one was living stone and one was dead stone. And he said that the living stone was more expensive than the dead stone. So our Gurudev was very surprised, because these were like simple, village men, like workers, and he was thinking, like, I know in the Vedas this type of knowledge is discussed, but he didn't expect it in these, like simple men. But they, just in their like hands-on work, they could recognize some difference. So even within stone, there's some gradation of consciousness. Interesting. And welcome to Jayadev and Dana, and also Narottam also joined us. Yeah, it's a very interesting. I'll just read a little bit from here. Our Gurudev, he's mentioning, this is from this book, Revealed Truth. I'll share the link in our chat for anyone who wants to check it out, who doesn't have it already. So he mentions here, this scientist, Jagadish Chandra Bose, who proved that plants and animals have consciousness. And then he also speaks about animals showing their conscious nature. And I'll just read this. Once in a film about jungle lions, our Gurudev, he liked to watch like nature documentaries. Actually, he liked to watch. Let's see. Once in a film about jungle lions, I saw a lioness chase a group of deer. Within the group of deer were a mother and her baby. When the group of deer saw the lioness coming towards them, all the deer began to run away. But the mother deer could not run very fast because she was trying to bring her baby with her. The rest of the deer ran away from the lioness to safety, but the mother and her baby could not. When the lioness caught up to the mother deer and was about to jump and catch, so the lioness was about to jump and catch, she suddenly stopped. I saw the eyes of the lioness then, and the feeling came to me that she was thinking, oh, I am foolish. I did not know this deer had a baby with her. That lioness was hungry, but she did not kill that mother deer. After she saw the mother deer's baby, she let them go and began to search for food elsewhere. When I saw this, I felt, yes, even jungle animals have consciousness and religion. It's interesting how you see these kinds of examples sometimes, amongst animals. Okay, well, nice question from Zandine. And I had another question too that came in, I didn't answer yet, about humility, which I can go into unless anyone present has any request. I can go to that. Okay, let me see. Question again. He was asking, what is the real meaning of humility? Here it is. In church, this is a man who's been going to church. In church, the vicar said humility comes from the Latin or Greek for low or earthly. I'm still trying to find out what humility means. Okay. Well, I mean, one thing I can say in regards to like the etymology of like the English word humility, I can't speak on that. I mean, in Sanskrit, there are a number of words, that are used to convey humility. Dainya, Karpanyam, Deen, Patit, many, there are a number of different words that are used to convey that feeling. But the main idea, I mean, there are different types of humility. And there's a gradation, right? But we can say that, also another point about humility is that Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he mentions in one of his comments in the book Prapana Jivanamrita that there's this beautiful line, Ud Buddha Sarupe Swabhava Karpanyam, that humility is the natural state of the soul, of the Swarup. Swarup means our intrinsic self. That is our natural state. And to be in a mentality of arrogance, pride, that's due to, like an artificial influence. Like we have one beautiful song in glorification of Nityananda, one of our great, Lord's deities. We were singing this morning, Ahankade Mata Hoya Nikai Pada Pasadiya. That it means intoxicated by ahankar, intoxicated by the false ego. I forgot about you, my Lord. So that spirit of pride, of arrogance, it's a type of intoxication, right? It's an intoxication, due to connection, association with the material energy. Like this spirit of aggression, it's actually, it's unnatural. It's unnatural. But our real condition, our real nature is to be humble. And one of the reasons for that is that when we're actually living in proper when we're living in awareness of our environment, right? If an enlightened soul, as one of their, like basic minimal qualities, they will have awareness of their true state. They will have awareness of this is what I want to say, their place within the whole. It brings, consciousness. This is what it means to be conscious, that we are aware of our place within the whole. Whereas like normally in material consciousness, we have a very distorted perception of who and what and where we are. It's like, like for example, imagine you're a little ant in the jungle and you're envisioning that you're the Lion King. Then if you try and act like you're the Lion King, you're just gonna get into trouble, or you're gonna make a fool of yourself. It's not gonna come to a meaningful end. But if you have real awareness of who and what you are and what your role is, that's a joyful thing. It's not like it's not like, oh, you've got the short end of the stick. It's still wonderful to be an ant in a beautiful jungle. And when we are situated in our proper nature and duty and expression, joy comes as a result of that. So I'm an ant, and this is the role that I have to play. This is how I make a contribution to this beautiful jungle. This is my part in the ecosystem. But there's also this awareness and appreciation for the consciousness of others, right? This is my part. And then you'll have awareness of what all the other ants are doing. And you have awareness of what the monkeys are doing, and what the real Lion King is doing, and what the fish are doing, and the trees are giving oxygen, and and you're appreciating the contribution, the beautiful contribution of so many different entities in this ecosystem. And that naturally brings about humility, right? Well, I'm playing my small part, and there are so many others who are also playing their part, and together we're creating and experiencing something beautiful, right? But our Gurudev expressed it like this once, that the ego, the false ego, it makes us feel very big, so that and to the extent that we can't see anyone else, right? We only see ourselves. Another way I think of it is like the false ego, it creates this noise that doesn't allow us to hear anyone else. So we're stuck in this totally egocentric existence where we're only hearing our own reality, and everything that's coming at us is being filtered through our own version of reality. And we're unable to appreciate others because of that. We have an inflated sense of our own existence, our own importance, and we can't hear everyone else. We can't appreciate what are they going through? What are they doing? And what are they contributing? We don't have awareness of that. So this is one point, like just having some awareness of our true place in the whole, within the whole, that naturally brings about humility. So that's one point. What was the question? What exactly did he say? What is the meaning of? I'm trying to find out what humility means. So yeah, like that's a starting point. Appreciating the contribution of others and having awareness of our own condition, of our own place, within the whole. That's one point. And then we could, what does humility mean? It's a feeling of, I would say it's a healthy feeling of smallness, It's not, it's not something to be, it's not, because sometimes the word humility, it gets a bad rap, like it, especially in this modern, like humanistic age, right? People talk about like being confident, being sure of yourself. But these, you can have both. You can be confident and you can also be humble. You can have, that was something, our Gurudev, he used to encourage, his disciples to be confident. It was like a theme with him, to be confident. Humility does not equate low self-esteem or insecurity. Like that's a different category. But real humility is something healthy and wholesome. It's a healthy, happy appreciation of our smallness in relation to the greater whole. It's also something that can motivate us to take shelter, right? Because when we have awareness of how we need to grow, right? If we're thinking of it in those terms, like when we look at ourselves and see like what we need to work on, where we have weaknesses, where we have failings, then that's something that can move us to take shelter of Guru, of the divine, of the Lord, of the saints. So in Bhakti Vinod Thakur's songbook, Sharanagati, he discusses these 6 limbs of Sharanagati, surrender. And in the order that he presents, he puts Doinya, humility, first. And the second, Atmanivedan, means self-giving. So like a healthy feeling of humility will move us to take shelter, to offer ourselves to the higher plane. Because it's like if we want to, just as a simple example, if we want to, become a teacher of mathematics, first we have to realize what we don't know, and then that will move us to learn from an existing mathematics teacher, right? So it, like having a clear awareness of our weaknesses, that will move us to learn more, to grow more, and to take that higher shelter. So that, this is one side of humility, kind of like more from the angle of like rational thought, or what we refer to as sambandha gyan, means like having knowledge of the true nature of things. Some like just a healthy dose of sambandha gyan will bring about humility. Just having awareness of what our condition is and what our place is, that will bring about a feeling of humility. So this is one type of humility, as I said, more connected with rational thought. But then there's another type of humility which is not based on any type of calculation. That's something that comes out of divine experience. And there, one definition that Srila Sridhar Maharaj gives of humility is the outcome of proximity to greatness. Right? So connected to the higher entity, connected with the beauty, the infinite ocean of beauty, love, charm, that is experienced in connection with Krishna, with divinity, that will bring us, that will inspire this feeling of humility. Like if you're, like Shintami and I, we visited the Thunder Mountain in Sedona. When you're standing in front of a grand, beautiful mountain, you feel small by comparison. And that's a wonderful thing. It's a joyful thing. And then the point I really wanted to get to, what I was really coming to, is that it's an outcome of a deep feeling of love. This is the highest expression of humility. This is divine humility. That in the intensity of the connection that is felt, with divinity, one will feel this intense humility also. And particularly, and then we're coming to a finer topic here, and then particularly in the feeling of separation from one's beloved. that brings out this deep feeling of humility. Love makes you humble, simply put, right? Love makes you humble. It doesn't matter if you're the king of the world, you have all the wealth and all the riches of the world. It doesn't matter if you're the most famous person in the world, but someone who you love can bring you to your knees, right? This is a proven fact. This is the power of love. And so also, that's something we may see or experience in this world, but then also that has its divine expression. This feeling of helplessness, of deep humility that comes out in love. And there's this very interesting line in one of our texts, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where Sanatana Goswami, the author, he makes this very beautiful and curious statement, interesting statement, how love and humility, they have a circular relationship. That love stimulates a greater feeling of humility, and humility also stimulates a greater feeling of love. that they support and encourage one another. They both bring about more of the other. The more humility you have, the more that inspires love. And the more love you have, the more that inspires humility. So it's a very interesting point. But that was probably overly complicated for our friends. If I had to say it in a nutshell, what does it mean to be humility, to be humble? What does humility mean? Well, I would say to have in a nutshell, to have a healthy awareness of our actual position within the whole, on one hand. And then second is, sorry, these notifications are coming up. And then the second, coming in connection with the higher plane, that will bring about a feeling of humility. And and this is one reason why it's important that we have higher association, because that will make us feel more humble, and that will also inspire us to try to be more, to be something more, to grow. Like I think I might have quoted this last week as well, but someone, actually the person who just sent me a WhatsApp message right now, she said, if you're the smartest, it's probably a famous quote, I don't know, but if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. We always want to try to be around people who are better than us in some way, because that will help to stretch us. We want to get out of our comfort zone. We don't want to, rest on our laurels, or just be comfortable in our dysfunction or whatever, but we want to be stretched. We want to be the best that we can be. We want to fulfill our wonderful potential as spiritual seekers, spiritual beings. So I think that's my answer. Does anyone in our beautiful group here have any comments, any further reflections on the subject matter? Narottam Prabhu, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, I don't know how you found out, but yeah, I just wanted to say it in a simple way. Humility is, once we're in connection with Krishna, letting Krishna's will supersede our own, in the sense of,
I love that.
Yeah, we might have desires and things like that, and Krishna will take those into account, but knowing that ultimately it's Krishna's will and desire, and if we can execute his will and desire, then and let it supersede our own. That'll be like a sacrifice, we're sacrificing our own desires and proclivities in order to serve Krishna's desires, which is beneficial for everyone.
I love that so much. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Letting the higher will, letting Krishna's will come down and becoming an instrument of that, rather than resisting that, rather than opposing that current. That reminds me, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, our Param Gurudev, he made this really wonderful, concise statement explaining what karma is. And he said, karma means self-assertion. This is what karma means. Karma means self-assertion. That we, in other words, that we are imposing our own will upon the environment, right? That's actually what karma, that's what is reactionary. That's what's karma. Karma does not mean to be, does not mean, not everything is karmic, right? Not everything is reactionary, but it's when we are imposing our egoistic will, like in disconsonance, in disharmony with the natural flow of the environment. So then because it's like an awkward imposition, it's creating friction, and it has to be reactionary, right? Whereas in the expression of bhakti, we are moving with the current, right? We're flowing with the current. There's no resistance there. There's no opposition to the natural flow of things. And we are trying to be instruments, right, of that higher will. So that's wonderful, Narottam. Thank you for sharing that. Wonderful. Beautiful. Nice. Anyone else? Bhagavan Prabhu, you want to share any thoughts? He's disappeared. Govinda Nandini, anything you want to share?
I have something here, a definition of humility. It's Trivikram Maharaj, he messaged me. But it's from Guru Maharaj saying that humility is absolute adherence to truth.
Beautiful. Beautiful, wonderful.
This is also high level definition, right?
Yeah, that's another point, that humility may not take on the form that we expect, right? That in order to be humble to a higher truth, we may have to take on an appearance of assertion or arrogance, right? In our defending something higher or protecting something higher, then we may have to be strong, right? Like Srila Sridhar Maharaj gives a simple example. If someone's coming to attack my father, then am I just going to be humble, there? Am I just going to like lay down and let them beat my father up? No, I have to protect my father. That's my duty. So yeah, that's a really nice, helpful comment too. Adherence to truth, adherence to truth. That's real humility. Very nice.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So in adhering to humility, I feel that different avatars of Krishna I've represented that. I had asked the question to one of my peers, so as Krishna came, Mahabharata war happened. Now Mahaprabhu has descended, and his order is Harinam Sankirtan, along with chanting japa and everything. And then Parshuram was here. He was destroying the demonic ruling families of the world. So like I was asking him, so do we like take on different avatars at different times? He said no, like I think the clarity is that that's for our time, it's Mahaprabhu's is his avatar, Krishna's avatar is Mahaprabhu, is the predominating deity for our time. So we should take that up as our most sincere practice. And then Krishna was here not too long ago, but even in the Mahabharata, there's like different examples of humility in terms of Arjun being, letting, executing Krishna's will. And then also there's that time where Yudhishthira Maharaj, who always adheres to truth as dharma, he could never lie. But there's that time where he was asked to lie by Krishna to the Kauravas by saying Ashwatthama is dead, but he was referring to the elephant and not the other person. So yeah, it's very interesting that we have to keep the higher truth in mind while we're executing things. I just want those comments. That's what came to me.
Yeah, that's a nice example. For those of you who aren't familiar, there's this incident in Mahabharata when they've reached a point during the Battle of Kurukshetra where everyone's just kind of like, it's just turned into a free-for-all. Everyone started out honorably with the best of intentions, but then it gets to a point where there's, each side is playing tricks, on the other, and they're trying to get the advantage through devious means. So that's just the point where they are in the battle. And so then Krishna, he also joins this. And, Krishna's never been one to be overly attached to morality in the conventional sense. He is truth, right? So he makes the laws, so he can break them. And so anyway, so Krishna comes up with this plan that Ashwatthama's father is Dronacharya, right? And Dronacharya, he was the great, powerful general. And so Krishna thought, if we can like shake him up a bit, right, make him lose his composure, then he'll become weak for some time, and then we can get an advantage. We can get the advantage. So Krishna comes out with this idea. We will announce that his son has died. And remember, the Kauravas they've been pretty nasty. They killed all of Draupadi's sons. I don't remember at what point that was, before or after, but the Kauravas were, beyond dirty. They were absolutely cruel and, just awful. So, this wasn't such a big thing, but so this was Krishna's idea, that we'll announce that Dronacharya's son Ashwatthama has died, and this will weaken Dronacharya, and we'll get some advantage. And then he tells Yudhishthira, because Yudhishthira is the son of Dharma, and he is the embodiment of Dharma, of righteousness, and Yudhishthira, as you said, he's never told a lie in his life. So Krishna tells Yudhishthira, you have to announce this, because if you say it, everybody will believe you. There won't be any doubt. You're beyond any doubt. So you have to announce this, Yudhishthira. But Yudhishthira, he can't do it, because he's so attached to the general conception of truth, of morality. And so Yudhishthira says, I just can't do this. So then they modify it a little bit, and then he's supposed to, and then he calls out that Ashwatthama, because there's an elephant called Ashwatthama. So instead he calls out, Ashwatthama, the elephant has died, instead. And as I recall, I think it still was good enough. It worked. And then it said that, Yudhishthira, because of his adherence to truth, his purity, his chariot always floated above the ground a few inches. But after that incident, it sank to the earth. And so then there are different opinions as to why this happened. And the general scholars, they say, no, because he kind of told a half lie, by, it was tricky. He was saying that this elephant has died, but it was a type of manipulation, right? And so because his level of morality sunk a little bit, and for that reason, his chariot, it stopped floating above the earth. But the Vaishnava scholars, they see it just the other way around, that because he wasn't able to fully embrace Krishna's higher will, then he lost some purity because of that. Because if we appreciate that Krishna is the origin of all truth, then whatever he wills, that is truth. Whatever he wills, that is the highest thing, that overrides anything else. And so Yudhisthira, he wasn't able to, transcend his attachment to generic truth, generic morality, and surrender to a higher will, and so he actually lost some standing because of that. So yeah, that's a nice example. Narata Prabhu. Nice. Oh, I see our Irish friends have just joined us. Somya, Sham, Vijay, Prabhu, Dandavat. Welcome. Dandavat. Right. Well, we're coming to the end of our meeting here. Any final thoughts? You're in the center there, Somya Sham Prabhu. Are you in the
house? No,
you're in your house. Okay.
Yeah.
They Somya Sham and Vijay, they just acquired a property in Limerick, Ireland, for a new center there. Well, anyone have any more shares, announcements, or comments? Very nice to be here with all of you. This keeps me alive, connecting with our beautiful community, because I'm always traveling and I'm always in different situations, and now I'm in a temple, but sometimes I may be a little alone or something, but I know this is always going to go on. I'm always have this online Sanga. So I'm always very grateful. And Gangalila's in her car. Where are you driving?
Yeah, I'm driving. I'm driving to San Diego.
Okay.
And and my cousin is here, and she's
hello.
She's going to kayak, and I'm gonna meet my son he lives in San Diego today. So
okay.
I want to thank you, Vishakha. It was really great, and I really resonate with, if you're the smartest in the room, you're in the wrong room. That's kind of cool, but what you said then, and that's even better, is that only then it will expand when we are exposed to something smarter, higher, better. So thanks for letting me be in this Sangha. That provides me my expansion. I feel the pull. Thank you for that.
Always so happy to have your participation, Gangalila. You always make such pertinent comments, which I always find really helpful.
Hare Krishna.
Do you know Rama Swarup from the Sedona ashram?
I do. From actually before the ashram moved. I don't know if you remember me when you were still in Cottonwood.
Yeah, right. Jai.
I do. You remember me too?
I do remember you. Yeah, of course.
You're Narayan's daddy.
Yes.
Yeah, Rama Swarup has this adorable little boy. So
nice to see you here. Nice to see you here in this room.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be with you all. Thank you.
All right. Well, Govinda and Dini, any final words from our hostess, or should we close there for today?
No.
I have a share.
Chintamani.
Oh, Chintamani, please.
I just got out of the bathtub, so I'm not gonna have my camera on. But what I wanted to share was Dhanavad, Hare Krishna. I think you told me, Didi, before, or you told the group or whatever, and I don't remember how or when. I don't know how people can remember like what people say exactly and where it was. I just have this kind of fuzzy memory of just, it's all, I don't know if I'm like brain abuse or whatever, taking intoxication in my life or whatever, my brain just doesn't work. But you said, I thought, you can fake humility, but you can't fake tolerance. Is that your quote?
That's Srila Govinda Maharaj. That's Srila Gurudev. He said that. He said that you can fake humility. Anyone can fake humility. You can pretend to be humble, right? You can cower and look very humble. And you can fake respect. It's easy to fake respect, but you can't fake tolerance, he said. You're if you're tolerant or you're not tolerant. You can't fake that. And yeah, he emphasized tolerance. And he also said that tolerance, that through practicing tolerance, the qualities of humility and respect would come out of that. Oh, for those who aren't familiar, we're referring to, this is a composition of Lord Chaitanya known as the Shikshashtakam, where he discusses the significance of kirtan in this age. And the third verse of, it's 8 verses, and the third verse is Trinada pi sunichena tadoriva sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahadi, which means one who is more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, who gives all honor to others without expecting it for themselves. Kirtaniya sadahadi, they are qualified to always take the holy name of Hari, the holy name of the Lord. And so our Gurudev put a lot of emphasis on these 3 qualities of humility, tolerance, and respect. And he discussed them extensively, practically like in every meeting, he would talk about this. And this was one of his comments, And I meditated on that because he didn't elaborate. He said that through tolerance, humility, and respect would come automatically. And I thought about that, and what I realized was that if we, when we're in a particular situation, right, we have a reaction, right, that we, based on our particular set of prejudices, right, then we have particular reactions to particular situations. And that blinds us, right? That can blind us in the moment. We have this instinctive kind of reaction. But if we're able to implement tolerance, right, that allows us to sit back, right? We're not further stirring the situation, right? We're not inflaming, that's the word I'm looking for. We're not further inflaming the situation. And it's like giving us pause to sit back and to reflect, right? And if we give pause to ourselves to reflect, then what happens? Then we'll generally see, like, where did we actually go wrong? Because when we have these like negative reactions to situations, it's normally about blame, right? We're seeing, oh, this person's doing this wrong, that person's doing that wrong, or the environment is not serving me, right? We're blaming others, we're blaming the environment. But when we like, if we can put a check on that reaction and reflect on ourselves, then we'll say, hang on, I did this wrong and I did that wrong. And, this person's bothering me, but how did I provoke that? How did I enable that, right? And that brings about a feeling of humility. And also it helps us it gives us a chance to appreciate the other person more. Where are they coming from? We feel some compassion for them. Why are they behaving like that? And also giving us a chance to appreciate the fact that whatever they may be exhibiting now, they all have the potential of something so much higher. So shouldn't we give them the chance, the space, the opportunity to grow into their potential? Isn't it our responsibility as authentic spiritual practitioners to support others in achieving their potential? Isn't that our duty? So how can I respond to this situation in such a way that I can support this person in achieving their potential and support myself also? No. Yeah, Tungaras is saying, wait and see. That was another expression our Gurudev would make. Wait and see. Don't immediately react. Wait and see. So yeah, that was an interesting reflection I had, that, through tolerance, tolerance gives us space to, come to these, higher conclusions, on these situations that we face. But yeah, to get to that point, that takes some inner work, that takes some grace, and it also requires a mood of compassion and affection, because this was another point that our Gurudev made, that if we're tolerating in an artificial way, we won't be able to sustain it. It's not sustained. There will be a breaking point. If we're like tolerating by the law, like gritting our teeth and tolerating, we're going to reach a breaking point. That was another point he made. So he said, we have to tolerate with affection, with compassion. And, and I've seen that, I think we've all seen that, or maybe we've experienced it ourselves. Like we have those moments when we just explode. I give this example sometimes of one of our devotees who, in one temple, like he's been giving class there for maybe like 20 years or something. He gives the Sunday class, the Sunday lecture, and in this temple, there's this one man who would come, another devotee who would come and be in the audience, but he always kind of like interrupts and makes these annoying, irrelevant there's always that person, right? Person who's just not getting it, and also kind of like wants to show that they know something, right? So they're interrupting in very awkward ways and awkward moments, and and it's annoying, And so I witnessed this going on for years and years, and the person giving the class just quietly tolerating it, but with some feeling of resentment, And then I heard, this was like a year ago or not too long ago. I wasn't there, but I heard that one Sunday he stood up, he like shouted like, I can't do this anymore. And he went storming out, and he went out to the basement and like fuming there, had to take a time out. Like this was the middle of like a Sunday program, lots of people there, so, bless his heart, So, that we'll have those moments if we're not tolerating with a mood of affection, compassion, or just humor. Having a sense of humor really helps. Having a good sense of humor really helps in these situations. Don't. I like how Chintamani says that we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously. So, but if we're lacking that, then we're going to reach that breaking point. So it's indispensable to have that mood of affection there. But thanks for bringing it up, Chintamani. Very nice reflection. Jayadev, are you about to say something? You turned off your mic, but we can't hear you. You turned on your mic, but we can't hear you.
Oh, that was an accident. No.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, well, maybe we'll wrap things up. Did anyone else want to say anything? Should we close there? Okay. Well, it's been another beautiful meeting, beautiful friends, and wishing you all a wonderful week ahead, and look forward to next time. We will. Jai Gurudev.